What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so um, let me say this, man. So, of course, we all know now, and I took another day off from YouTube. For those of you who wonder why I wasn't active again yesterday, I took a day off last week. This has been an especially rough month as far as the news is concerned. Sometimes um, sometimes you just need a break from YouTube, man. You know what I'm saying? To just decompress and also realize that YouTube is not real life. But also, you hate to be the bearer of bad news, and there's a lot of negativity on YouTube now. Telling you, man, YouTube to me, when I first started doing this over a decade ago, it was a lot more fun. Now it's just different. It's a different overall tone on here. But anyway, I think we're all aware now that there was a tragic shooting that occurred in Manhattan yesterday evening, and 20, I think it's 27 or 28 years old. I think 28 years old. Young man whose name escapes me. It might be something like Shane Amuro. Or don't quote me on that. I think he unalived 4 people, and then I think he was unalived. And my instincts are telling me, based on what I've read, that this was essentially uh, a, a this was an unaliving, a purposeful, or a intentional self unaliving, or I shouldn't say self unaliving, but a I hate we got to talk like this on YouTube. This was a purposeful unaliving by officer that I think this person did. They knew that what they were engaging in was not going to end up in a positive situation for them. I think they had come to grips with whatever mind they had left that this was going to happen. Okay. Now, apparently, this person had grievances with the NFL. Now, this person, from what I've been able to read, never played in the NFL, but they did play football. And the person seemed to believe that they had CTE. Now, CTE cannot be definitively diagnosed until after death. But I guess from looking at, documentaries about CTE in the NFL, this person felt aggrieved by football itself. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on this person just to see if this person ever had a realistic shot at playing in the league, uh, tryouts, or what have you, college football. But I get the impression this guy had been playing football since he was a kid. So, yeah, if that's the case, that much time period could have passed by so that repeated blows to the head could have led to the degeneration of his brain to the point where he did develop CTE. It's a possibility. And I'm not trying to make this guy out to be a victim. I'm not trying to do that at all. What he did was absolutely revolting. And regardless of what was going on with him, this person still should have been locked up for the rest of their life, either in a mental institution, or if that person was truly competent, never getting out of light day in prison, ever. Okay? But if this person truly was mentally ill, it just further fans the flames on why a lot of people have checked out of when it comes to watching the NFL. Because you got to remember, for many years, the NFL had been informed that there was growing medical evidence that their product was increasingly leading to players in their latter years, suffering from debilitating neurological diseases and illnesses and disorders. Gotta remember, ever since I forget his name, Dr. Umalu, I think his last name is. Ever since the good doctor, or just call him that, discovered CTE, which can only be seen in deceased people. And I think the first NFL player to be definitively diagnosed with it was what was his name? Mike Starr, I think, the longtime center for those Pittsburgh Iron Curtain teams from the 70s and into the 80s. He was only 50 years old, but he looked like he was 70 when he died, right? Ever since then, 350 NFL players have been diagnosed with CTE. Not only that, a disproportionate amount of NFL players, if you really look into it, like I did, a disproportionate amount of NFL players suffer from ALS. They suffer from ALS. They suffer from Parkinson's disease at a high rate. And at the least, in the most benign situations, they develop dementia earlier, Alzheimer's earlier at a higher rate, and just outright forgetfulness. Brett Favre was seeing forgetfulness that mimicked age-related mental memory loss 20 years earlier than it should have happened. So football has had a very destructive effect on players. That's why when it comes to rule changes, when it comes to things they can do to make it a safer sport, you've never seen me complain about that when it comes to the NFL. And to those who say, well, these players know what they're getting into, no, the fuck they didn't know. And that's the thing I want to talk about here. See, I think it's hypocritical that some people get pretty privilege. You know what's going on right now in our country. Some people get pretty privilege for agreeing to engage in certain behaviors or activities. But then suddenly, when things didn't turn out the way they wanted to turn out, knowing the ramifications of what could have happened and transpired, right? Now all of a sudden they want to say they're a victim. Now all of a sudden they want to say they're a victim. Now all of a sudden they'll contact some shyster lawyer, and all of a sudden now they're part of some frivolous lawsuit. And people will agree with them, and people will root for them because people just are generally suckers for a pretty face. Whereas a pug-nosed, bruiser, or, a big moke of a football player who was playing a sport that he loved, but he did not know the long-term risk involved as far as getting hit in the head that often, same way with these wrestlers. A lot of these wrestlers, they didn't know what CTE was. They didn't know that there was an increased risk of dementia partaking in this sport. They didn't know that. And then when you compound that with the fact that oftentimes, especially in wrestling, these guys get financially squeezed and screwed over, nobody really cares. Because they're a pretty face, And it's just sad. So I reference wrestling to talk about Chris Benoit for a second. What Chris Benoit did was absolutely disgusting and disturbing, and according to his friends, totally and completely out of character with the man that they knew or they thought they knew. Now, it has been confirmed that Chris Benoit suffered from not just CTE, but severe CTE, and he had the brain similar to that of an Alzheimer's patient that was approaching 90 years of age. So this is a man that had been completely demented, plus CTE. So what I'm saying is, it's hard to look at these situations with any sympathy when you look at what the person had done, unless you also look at it or try your best to look at it through the prism of eyes or a brain that is no longer functioning in a normal manner, or a person that is completely deluded from reality. Now, the family don't want to hear that shit. So it's very hard to find a voice when it comes to these situations. All I'm going to say is this is a tremendous tragedy all around. And while the NFL is not at fault for the situation, the NFL is at fault for its criminal recklessness and not taking that information seriously when it was first available to them, 30-something years ago? And they buried it, or they tried to threaten legal action when people were just trying to save lives because there's more, worried about the almighty dollar. So let's bring us to Skip Bayless. Skip, in the aftermath of this tragedy, tweeted this: "Thank God the New York City shooter apparently took the wrong bank of elevators and didn't make it to the NFL floors. He reportedly bizarrely blamed the NFL for what he believed to be his CTE suffered from playing high school football." Jesus Christ. This is why Skip Bayless will never be on television ever again. This is why he's a joke, and this is why nobody wants to ever work with him. Because I've never seen someone so tone deaf as far as what to write. Is sports that important to this nitwit? So, fuck the four people that died at the hands of this man. I guess they were nobodies, right? Nobody cared about them. As long as he didn't hurt or maim or injure or unalive important NFL executives or anybody affiliated with them big, bad, important NFL offices. Well, that would have been a tragedy. This guy really cannot articulate himself at all, man. This is ridiculous. Why would you write this? And yeah, it is bizarre to write in a rambling note that you're blaming the NFL for what you think is CTE, but then that's what you would expect for somebody that's not thinking rationally. I don't know. That's why I'm kind of trying to be slightly, I don't even want to say sympathetic, but I'm trying to be appropriate here. Because if this was a logical man who thought this out, if this was, let me play this. If this was a premeditated crime thought up by a person that actually knows what they're doing, but they're motivated by evil, fuck him. He's burning in hell where he deserves to be forever in eternity for doing this. But if this is somebody that truly was struggling with CTE, then I don't know how else to look at it other than a complete and total tragedy of epic proportions. But I do know one thing. Players are bigger than ever before. Football players, right? They're bigger than ever. They hit harder. Um, Now they have tried to take the violence out of the sport, but you got to think that as a lot of these generation of players who played from the 80s and 90s and 2000s start getting older, you got to think more and more of them are going to be diagnosed with the same thing. So what's going to happen? You get what I'm going with this? Like, eventually, the NFL is going to have to look into the situation because now a lot of these players make a lot of money. They make a lot of money. And if just a few of these players get behind some sort of lawsuit against the NFL, then that could be crippling, especially for the NFL's image. So they may eventually want to seriously I don't know. I don't know, man. You just want to at least look like you give a shit. That's all I say, man. And Skip is an asshole.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Man, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.